So I'm going to give a quick update, and the first little piece of the update is actually on the title slide, which is that in typical fashions of any large corporation, we've had our share of organizational changes. Obviously, the big one last year when with that little storage company that we bought. But most recently, the HPC team in Dell EMC has been moved into and merged into the server organization, which is a really big plus for us, being sort of closer to the compute products. So I work for Terry Pellegrino as VP of Server Strategy and HPC. So a big plug, and I'll try to get Terry to one of these meetings. I wanted to start by just talking about the view that we're taking to the way that HPC is changing, and I think we've talked about it a number of times within the meeting here. And so I used my vast PowerPoint expertise to do a simple graphic that actually took Hyperion's forecasts and put them into this little bit of a pyramid to really make the point that what we are seeing is HPC becoming the base infrastructure increasingly for high-performance data analytics, and most recently now for HPC-driven AI. And some of that means that some of these technologies are being applied into classical HPC problems. Some of that is creating new workloads for HPC. But it really, from the standpoint of what that means for Dell EMC, is it's becoming very much more core to the overall mission of what the corporation is doing. Of course, the obligatory picture of Michael Dell to making the point that what we're really seeing is how information is processed, whether it's information that comes from traditional HPC and simulation and modeling, whether it's coming from high-performance data analytics, but certainly now with the addition of machine and deep learning. Our basic marketing view of the world, of our transforming the future, hasn't changed very much in a couple of years. Again, a focus on advancing HPC and enabling new technologies and making that part of solutions that we could deliver as a trusted advisor to our customers. We talk a lot about democratizing HPC, the whole notion of making HPC technology more available across a broad market, whether it's science, engineering, analytics, and so on, and giving a complete solution. And optimizing HPC is all the work that we do across the breadth of not only the Dell EMC portfolio, but actually the Dell Technologies portfolio that includes much more than servers and storage and so on. So I've liked using this diagram to sort of make that point. Advancing is what we show on the top of this, is again the expertise and experience we have in building HPC solutions, our partnerships with our technology providers like Intel and NVIDIA and Mellanox, Bright Computing, and many others, but also our partnerships with our customers. We have a network of centers for innovation that a number of our customers work with us on, basically where they're doing development and research on new workloads, new applications of our technology, and feed that back to us that we can use for the next set of solutions that we deliver to our customers. The one I'll talk to a little bit more in another slide is the HPC Innovation Lab. This is our, basically our sandbox located in Palmer, Texas, where we can bring customers in, bring partners in to be able to develop new solutions. And we have, again, a substantial amount of gear and a full-blown HPC and AI engineering team focused on that. On the bottom is, again, the breadth of the portfolio, starting with workstations at one end and going to cloud at the other. And much of our recent work, not surprisingly because of that little acquisition, has been working between, if you will, the legacy Dell HPC team working with a number of folks in the legacy EMC organization around how we are establishing a complete portfolio for HPC storage. We're always asked about, that the sort of the thought process that HPC storage translates into luster or translates into apologies to IBM GPFS. I still can't get that term out of my mind. But in fact, what's really used in real environments is a whole portfolio that starts with fast scratch at one end and goes out to archive at the other end. And by bringing together our capabilities, we now have a portfolio that extends to that whole set of storage workloads, again, from fast, closely coupled to the compute solutions types of things, out to cheap, high volume object storage. And again, bring that under a single common umbrella. I'll also mention on here, on the cloud side, the work that we're doing with our friends at VMware. Some of the folks in the room may know Josh Simon, who, old-time HPC guy, was in Sun for quite a while. He's now part of the CTO office at VMware. And we started an initiative with Josh where they are working on making virtualization more effective in an HPC environment. He can show you data, how they've eliminated a tremendous amount of the traditional overhead that caused most of us to believe that virtualization would never play in an HPC environment. And now you can get a lot of the benefits of virtualization and not lose that kind of performance. And of course, we're also doing work with containers, with Docker and Singularity and so on. But then in the middle is the solution development work that we're doing, building our HPC solutions, but doing it in concert, again, with our data analytics solutions, with our AI solutions, doing it in concert with solutions that we're delivering around hybrid cloud so we can bring all these technologies together into the solution environment for our customers. Down at the optimizing HPC level, again, being part of the server organization now, we're a little bit closer to the server development process, which is a good thing for us, but we've already been doing a lot of work with them to build in HPC capabilities into our servers. So this is just some of the things that have been announced over the last year. Back at supercomputing, we talked, Mellanox was talking about HDR, and we pointed out the fact that C6420 is already HDR ready. We'll be able to support HDR when it ships. We talked about C6420 and particularly the addition of direct component liquid cooling technology to it in partnership with CoolIT. In December, we announced 3 new PowerEdge servers supporting AMD EPYC processors. At supercomputing, we launched the C4140 as the next generation 4 GPU in 1U rack server that includes support of V100s as well as NVLink. And the most recent thing that just happened very, very recently with Intel's launch of their line of ARIA FPGAs, we were standing up with them announcing support for those on the R640, R740, and R740 XD servers. But then again, we put all of this, we take all of that base technology and we build it into HPC solutions. The so-called Ready Bundle for HPC is kind of our core HPC cluster solution. You can think of it as this is the recipe for building an HPC cluster. It doesn't have a single part number. It doesn't have a static bill of materials. It's really the methodology that we use for building a cluster. Sitting alongside of it is we do the same thing for an NFS storage solution. We do the same thing for Luster. But then we blow out implementations of that HPC cluster for particular vertical implementations. So for computer-aided engineering, we put a focus on that with support for a variety of the available CAE ISV codes. Life sciences for genomics, for cryo-EM, and so on, and then sort of a general research configuration. But then to make that something that can really be consumed is we build a whole set of HPC services that are available worldwide to be able to support our HPC customers, including deployment of clusters at whatever size, managed services. We talk a lot about clouds, as I mentioned it a minute ago. When people ask us about cloud, the first question I ask them is, what do you mean by that? Because half the time, it's not what we really think of as public cloud, probably more than half. Very often, it's really managed services. They've got their on-premise systems, but they really don't want to have to manage them anymore. They really want to stick to their own knitting. So we have a product, we have a part number for it called Remote Cluster Services, which basically allows somebody to implement that cluster fully on-prem, but they can close the door, lock it, turn the lights off, and we'll manage it remotely. Of course, we have support capabilities for the HPC environment, where we have built up a worldwide support infrastructure supporting HPC solutions at the solution level, not just providing support for servers or support for disk arrays and so on. Outsourced management was mentioned a moment ago, which we're able, if that same customer really prefers to have their systems off-prem, but still wants them dedicated to themselves, we can create effectively a hosted environment in an external data center. And again, it'll seem to you like you have a totally private environment that, with all the appropriate security and so on that you'd expect for that. Then we get lots of questions from folks who talk about being able to separate implementing HPC via capital expenses versus versus operating expenses. So we have Dell Financial Services. This is Michael Dell's private bank. And basically, we can offer everything from traditional leasing out to pay by the drink. And do, again, whatever is appropriate for the particular requirements of our customer. I mentioned the lab, the Innovation Lab. Again, this is our sandbox located in Palmer, Texas. It's the place where we test new technologies. We can bring in customers. We can bring in ISVs and partners and so on to work with us. I'll note the scale of it. Very big lab, but also includes our very own top 500 system, the Zenith cluster, number 292 on the last list. And that system is continuously being upgraded as new technologies are being made available. Of course, need to talk about some customers. University of Liverpool, a new hybrid environment. Jülich was mentioned a few moments ago. We've delivered systems into their heterogeneous cluster booster environment. We just launched some new systems at NOAA that was actually launched just before supercomputing, and they've subsequently announced that they're upgrading them already and adding more systems into that infrastructure. University of Swinburne in Australia doing black hole research. A really interesting one is AeroFarms. This is a company that's building vertical farms in an urban environment. So think about a skyscraper with is basically a vertical farm. Basically, each floor is rows and rows of plants, lighting, water supplies, and so on. And this is an Internet of Things example where they're automating the process of monitoring all of the plants using AI technology to actually watch the plants and determine how they're growing so they can change the environment appropriately. This is actually located, their site is in the metropolitan New York area. It's in New Jersey. So really fascinating AI example. And of course, everybody talks about autonomous vehicles. We do it seriously, none of these little cars. Although I wouldn't want Uber to make a mistake with that one. My last slide, perfect timing, Lloyd, is to simply invite. We're in a great HPC user community right here. I'll simply highlight that we have our own, the Dell EMC HPC community that I had the privilege of starting up when I joined Dell. We meet a couple of times a year. The next meeting is going to be at the International Supercomputing Meeting in Frankfurt. If you wish, go to dellhpc.org and sign up to become a member. We'd love to see you there. Thanks a lot.